What's going on, Wiz Nation? What's going on with y'all? So this is our first ever State of the Wizards podcast. I'm your host, DCan, along with my man
Jose from DC
Hey.
Hoopla.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for checking us out. Of course, we're going to talk some Wizards hoops. We got some important things to cover. You ready, my dude?
Am I ever? I'm ready as it can be. Let's get it.
All right, that's what's up. Before we get started, for those folks who are new to State of the Wizards, SOW, thank you guys for, again, tuning in. Make sure you guys follow Wiz Takes and
follow DC Hoopla.
Yes, sir. We're on Twitter and also on Instagram. So first things first, my dude, what we're going to talk about today is a lot of Wizards, expectations of the Wizards, a lot of Wizards moves that off season. Firing of Scott Brooks. You and I have we've talked about it offline, but now that we've got this new podcast and we're crossing platforms, now we can really immerse ourselves into this. So we got a couple of things, a couple of topics to talk about and dive. You ready?
Am I ever? Let's go.
All right. So let's talk about the expectations of Wes Unseld Jr. What do you think the expectations are? What's your expectations of Wes Unseld Jr. being named the new head coach?
Well, my expectations for Wes Unseld Jr. is to put his stamp on the team. One of the things he said in his press conference is that he's going to be focusing on the defense, which we all know the last several years that has not been the focus at all. We know offensively this team can put the ball in the hoop, but what we don't know is that they can play defense. Now, of course, under the Randy Whitman years, we have seen this team play defense, but this is a different core of guys right now that he's going to be coaching, Wes Unseld Jr. So my expectations is that he puts his stamp on the team. He also is talking about developing some of the younger players because we know him coming from Denver. You know, he takes credit for developing the Joker and Michael Porter Jr. as well as Murray. So I'm expecting him to be able to coach some of our young players and Rui and Denny and find out what their strengths are and make them to be great players as we expecting them to be.
Absolutely. I have the same expectations of Wes. I think him coming in here, what I truly think he's going to do is I think he's going to, from day one, implement a brand of basketball that makes everyone you get everybody involved, right? So it isn't just a one-man show or two-man. This is about a raw team. Just getting everyone involved and everyone, you want to see a team chemistry that we've never seen here in Washington before. That's what you want. So hopefully the team rallies around what Wes is trying to do. I think that number one, you have to get that old stench of a system that Scott Brooks implemented out of here.
Hey, I can't agree with you anymore, man. I mean, I absolutely agree with that. The type of basketball that we witnessed this past season was a two-man type of basketball, and we're not used to seeing that. We've actually been, I'm going to say what you've always said, we've been spoiled by watching John Wall getting everybody involved. I know people will complain and say he's too ball dominant, but then, you know, we had ended up acquiring a point guard who was just as ball dominant, if not way worse than John Wall. So what I'm expecting is that, to your point, that Wes Unseld Jr. is going to let that basketball be shared amongst all the players. You know, we're not relying heavily on Bradley Beal going out there getting his 30, whether we win or lose. But we want to see other players. We want to see what Denny can bring to the team. We want to see what Rui can bring to the team. We've seen small sample sizes of Rui, and you and I can both agree this guy can give us 20 to even 30 points a night if he's given the opportunity. But we can't rely on Bradley Beal, which I can go on and on and on talking about what I have an issue with his game. We can't just rely on him anymore. We got to see what these other guys can bring. We drafted these guys for a reason. Let's see what they have to offer.
I agree. So, that kind of brings me to another question. So now that Russell Westbrook is gone, where do you see the offense? Where you see the offense headed? Under another style, because Russell Westbrook, he commanded so much attention. He needed the basketball in his hand. You brought up John Wall. The last almost 10 plus years, we were accustomed to the point guard being the dominant, position in the offense. Now that Russell gone, now that John, where do you see this offense going now that those guys are out of town?
Well, one thing that I'm curious to see is that this goes back to Denny. It's him being more of a point forward, kind of similar to how the way Scottie Pippen was in Chicago. That's one of the strengths of his game. When you look at his highlights when he played in Israel, you saw him bringing the ball up the court a lot more. That's probably the reason why he was getting some of the comparisons to Luka for bringing the ball up the court, but not for his scoring like Luka. But what I would like to see is the ball touching other players' hands. I like to see Rui get the basketball. I like to see Denny. I'm not expecting Daniel Gafford to do anything, but I would like to see him touch the ball. One of the things that I've been spoiled by under John Wall was the pick and roll. We don't run that anymore. We haven't ran that. Even when we had Westbrook, we didn't run it that often. But when you're used to seeing that pick and roll where the center sets the pick and then he actually drives to the basket and he either catches the alley-oop or he's catching it and laying it in, you got accustomed to that. What we saw more of is Westbrook gets the ball, he drives to the basket, like a bull, and then he's kicking it out to the shooter. Most of the time, the shooter was Bradley Beal, and then he puts up a shot or he drives to the basket. We just saw a lot of that where these guys was kind of taking turns on who's going to take the game over. I'm expecting to see a lot less than that. We'll eventually start talking about what things we're probably expecting out of Dinwiddie, but I just want to see a team effort and not an individual effort like we saw last season.
I agree. So just to piggyback off of that, I truly believe that you can now start to allow other position players to bring the ball up the court.
Absolutely.
So it's not just Russell Westbrook anymore.
Right.
So why can't Bradley Beal run the point occasionally? Why can't you're going to have a combination between Beal and Dinwiddie sharing the ball, bringing the ball up the court, and then, on a miss, if Denny is there, he grabs the rebound, he pushes the ball up the court. He doesn't slow.
Right.
Then he becomes the point forward that he's accustomed to being.
Right.
So therefore, there's an offense that's predicated on whoever has the rock. That's who's going to be, the point. And that's who makes the decisions in a offensive scheme, because you're not. Spencer Dinwiddie isn't a natural point guard. He plays the 2 and the 1.
Right.
So essentially, you're not going to see a point guard anymore averaging 10 assists a game. That's not in Dinwiddie's game.
Right.
Right. You're going to see him slash to the basket because he's a slasher. You're going to see him pull up for mid-range jump shots. You're going to see him pull up from the 3. You're going to see a lot of this, all these different styles of play because he's not a natural point guard. You're not getting Gary Payton. You're not getting Jason Kidd. You're not getting John Wall. And you're not getting Russell Westbrook. Okay? So, which brings me into my next segment. Let's Spencer Dinwiddie, since we're on the topic.
Okay.
What's your impression of Spencer Dinwiddie's game?
It's funny, when you started naming those names, I started thinking about players. So when I think of Spencer Dinwiddie, I put him in the class of like a Drew Holiday, maybe a Kyle Lowry type. a poor man's Chauncey Billups a little bit. The thing about it we have to recognize is Spencer Dinwiddie is also coming off of an ACL injury. And this is his second one that he's had. So Spencer Dinwiddie is one of those type of guys that he can slash to the basket. He's killed us in the past, when he was with a Brooklyn Net. But he's just one. He's a combo guard, but he's not going to give us what we have been accustomed to, which is, to your point, 10 assists a game. He's not going to really set the offense up. He's just going to drive to the basket, slash. I think we're going to see a lot of that between him and Bradley Beal. Not too sure how I really feel about that, seeing two guys actually slash into the basket, because I think they can possibly become selfish. But just see. Go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but the thing is, is that we signed a man at $20 million a year.
Yeah.
Right. Who for his career shoots 41% from the field.
Right.
Okay. 31% from three.
Yeah. Keep going.
Only averages 5 assists a game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what's his scoring average? His career?
12.9 points per game.
Say that louder for the people that can't hear it in the back.
12.9%. 12.9 points per game.
Now let me ask you a question, DCan.
Sure.
Was the trouble that we went through to get this guy, was it really worth it? When you just mentioned those numbers, was it really worth going through all that trouble to get this guy?
I would say absolutely not. It wasn't worth that. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you're going all out for a guy, you make a trade. You do that in 2016 for somebody like KD.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? This is the first time that we've ever gone out on a limb for one player that I've ever seen in Bullet/Wizards history. That's very true. And in my opinion, I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Mm. I don't think that we should have reached across the aisle as far as we did. Like I said in my Wiz Takes podcast, Spencer Dinwiddie is coming off of an injury-plagued season.
Yes.
For his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
And he had it in his mind at that very moment in time, I need to find a basketball team to play for next season.
Mm-hmm.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I can see.
Sorry about that. So in his mind, he literally was saying to himself, oh man, the Brooklyn Nets are not the same team they were 2 seasons ago.
Right.
At this point, I'm the odd man out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to need to find a basketball team to play for next season.
Right.
Who is going to be? And I honestly think that, again, in his mind, he said to himself, who I think is going to be a great team that I could sign to for the amount of money that I'm commanding or that I'm demanding? The Washington Wizards. Why? Because the Washington Wizards, they took on John. They gave John Wall a contract. They didn't have a problem with paying him the supermax, and he had injuries. Russell Westbrook, he had injuries, and they didn't have a problem with taking on his contract. I'm sure I can finagle my way to Washington, D.C. and get paid.
Mm.
I'm sure I can way to get paid.
Well, let me say this, man.
Go ahead.
John Wall was homegrown. This guy literally was, everybody knows we didn't make the playoffs if he doesn't play. That's a fact. Russell Westbrook is a future Hall of Famer. We were pretty hard on this guy, this past season. But when you look at his personal accolades, his resume, I mean, you can't discredit him at all. So we're talking about Spencer Dinwiddie. This is a downgrade, bro. Plain and simple. Spencer Dinwiddie, for one, has never been an all-star. You just mentioned his stats. He's never shot over 41% from the field. He's shot just as bad from the three-point range as John Wall and Russell Westbrook. And he hasn't even averaged 13 points a game. He only had one season, which was the 2019-2020 season, if I'm correct. No, the 2018-2019 season when he averaged 20 points. But he's pretty much nothing but a career backup that we're trying to make him be a starter here. Now, here's what I will say when it comes down to his contract, because I don't know if you looked at it lately. The contract actually is not bad when I look at it, because he's only like his last year, 10 million of his contract is guaranteed. So it's like a partial guaranteed in his last year. So really his contract is 3 years for 54 million. Not bad. I mean, you just shaved off $7 million. That's pretty much it. But, well, 6. But at the end of the day, he was not worth the trouble. The reason why the organization went all out for Spencer Dinwiddie, it was to prove a point, which could be a topic for another day if you want to talk about it. And that's Ted Leonsis' irresponsible comments that he made last week. That is, in my opinion, the reason why we went all out to get Spencer Dinwiddie.
Right. So you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you froze up there. So basically, we're in agreement. We don't feel Spencer Dinwiddie was worth all the trouble.
Right.
There's a lot of Wizards fans out there who feel like we got Spencer Dinwiddie for a bargain. He's going to be a big contributing factor to this Wizards roster. They feel like, there shouldn't be any complaints because we filled a much needed point guard position. So you got some Wizards fans out there who feels like this was worth going through all the trouble. But as you pointed out, look at his overall career stats. For me, even Kyle Lowry would have been more worth it than this to me. True. I don't know how you feel about it, but I mean,
yeah, you're right.
I'm like, you going through all this trouble? There was other names out there, that was way more worth the trouble than Spencer Dinwiddie. Absolutely. I think the only real reason, to be honest with you, the real reason why we even entertain this is he said he wanted to come here.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Because he said he wanted to come here, that's why the Wizards said, oh, we have a suitor. We have someone who is interested in us. So let's go all out on the limb for him because he's going all out on the limb for us. That's really, to me, that's what it boiled down to.
Man, the thing is, when you mentioned about Kyle Lowry, like, here's a player that we could have even tried, to get if we wanted him. And I'm not really too big on this guy either. But one thing that I can say is there's potential with this particular player, and that's Lonzo Ball. He got paid the amount of money he got paid with Chicago, but there's potential, for Lonzo Ball. Spencer Dinwiddie is the same age as Bradley Beal. So he's at his peak years right now. I mean, he's there. How much better can he really become? We don't know. Some people are sitting there saying that they think he can average 20. Now, for the people who's all pro this and, this is a great move, this, that, and the third, only thing I got to say to them people is stay off the drugs. So my thing is that the organization has the tendency to get in their own way for the wrong reason. And the trouble that they went through getting Spencer Dinwiddie, it just bothers me. So one of the things, as you know, that bothered me about this trade was the amount of second-round draft picks that we gave up. I just hate when we just treat second-round picks or even first-round picks like it's candy and we just give it away. And we did that for Spencer Dinwiddie. And we were willing to pay Spencer Dinwiddie the amount of money he wanted to get paid. Again, this is a guy coming off an ACL injury. You had a point guard who was homegrown, who was already getting paid the Supermax, and John Wall coming off of an ACL injury, not ACL, I'm sorry, off the Achilles, ready to play. And then you pretty much said he was done and you shipped him away. But then you 2 years later go and get a guy who missed all last season with an ACL injury, and you were willing to give him whatever he wanted.
Here's another concern. You ready for this?
I'm listening.
Dinwiddie's been in the league for 7 years.
Right.
He's never played an 82-game season. The most games he's ever played was the 2017-2018 season, and he played 80 games that season, and he only started 58 of them.
Okay. So let me ask you this, man. Since he's been in the league.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. So since he's been in the league, how many total games has he played since he's been in the league?
He's only played 320 games in his career.
How many years he been in the league?
7. Going on 8. He's only played 320 games his entire career. In the last 2 seasons, get this, the last 2 seasons, he's only played a combined 46 games. So for those people who criticize John Wall for only playing a certain amount of games since he's been injured, these are the same people who are saying that this is a great deal and a great trade and all that, right? But this man literally has only played in 40 games the past 2 seasons and 274 games in 5 seasons. Let me repeat that. He only played in 274 games in 5 seasons.
My gosh. You can't make this shit up, man. You cannot make this shit up.
Look, you really can't. We're not here to criticize. We're here to be realists. And the expectations right now of someone like Spencer Dinwiddie is so much beyond who he is as a basketball player that I don't even think he's going to be able to live expectations in his first season. We have him signed for how long?
3
years. 3 years. That would mean, right? Listen to this. So, 3 years, we're expecting him to play over 200 games or close to 200 games. Yeah, over 200 games in 3 years. This man only played 274 games in 5 years.
Man.
Again, we're just here to be realistic. We're not here to criticize or anything like that. We're just here to be realists. At the end of the day, my question to the Wizards organization was, did you do your homework? Did you sit down? Did you really think this through thoroughly before you said to this man, hey, we got a deal lined up, sign on the dotted line, you are now a Wizard? Did they really do their due diligence? Was it worth everything?
No, let me tell you what they did, man. Let me tell you, I'm going to just be honest. What they did was they listened to Spencer Dinwiddie's teammate, his new teammate, Bradley Beal. When I was reading some comments, Spencer Dinwiddie's kind of said something on the line that them two kind of already have chemistry. So they've been talking about teaming up for a minute, which leads me to the point of why Bradley Beal did not have an issue with Westbrook asking to be traded. Because let's be honest, when Westbrook was here, everybody was talking about him. They weren't talking about Beal. So what's a fact is that Beal does not like to share the spotlight, which is the reason why John Wall is not here. Now, John Wall was here first, but Beal always had it in the back of his mind that he felt like he was the guy. So then the organization decides to trade for Russell Westbrook, and Westbrook literally has his own fan base, and he puts asses in the seats. he knew going into the 2021-2022 season, nobody was going to come to the games to see it. Nobody comes to the games to see him anyway. They were most people said they became Wizards fans because of John Wall. They didn't become Wizards fans because of Bradley Beal. So I'm going to use what Ted Leonsis said with his irresponsible comments when he was comparing Russell Westbrook to Alexander Ovechkin. You basically chose Nicholas Backstrom and you sent your Alexander Ovechkin away. So we're stuck with Nicholas Backstrom.
Hold that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, hold that thought because we're gonna cover that too. We're gonna cover all of that. But just to kind of complete this portion of the podcast of this episode, Spencer Dinwiddie ranked the grade, the signing of Spencer Dinwiddie, A through F.
I'm gonna give it an F because they didn't do their damn homework on that
one. Oh man. So here's where I'm at. I'm gonna give it a C- only because of the potential and the fact that they did fill a much needed position. However, this was average at best, in my opinion, maybe below average. So C-, maybe even a D+. You can't make it seem as if, this signing was, you signed a potential superstar or potential all-star. This man isn't nowhere near both. He's nowhere near an all-star either. But
let me ask you this, DCan. Can I ask you one question? I want you to do you think he can even live up to being a stopgap? Is he capable of living up to being a stopgap?
I would say yeah. I don't know. Look, man, I'll be honest with you. It's, to me, I don't think we have a bunch of players. Matter of fact, let's do this, because the next segment that we're going into is trades and draft picks.
Okay.
The trade that we made, right? I don't think every player in the trade is going to be here long term. Okay?
I agree.
So I don't even think, I don't think that they're wholeheartedly stopgaps. I think that these are just temporary pieces.
I agree.
So stopgap kind of means like, okay, well, you come here, like Paul Pierce was a stopgap.
Right.
Paul Pierce filled that stopgap because we went to the playoffs and he did his job when he was here. We already knew Pierce wasn't going to be here long.
Right.
Right. We already knew, hey, Paul Pierce isn't going to be here long term. That's a stopgap, and he did what he needed to do. It's hard to say that these guys traded for is going to be that.
Right.
Sure. You know what I mean?
I agree. Now, the reason why I asked you about Spencer Dinwiddie, can he even be a stopgap, is because I look at the last year of his contract, it's partially guaranteed. But with what we know, when you're coming off of an ACL injury, it takes most players sometimes 2 years to really recover from an injury like that. So can he even fill that void? I would say possibly not. Now, when you talk about the other pieces that we got, KCP, Montrezl Harrell and Kuzma, especially let me talk about Kuzma first. We know his name has been linked to the Wizards for at least the past 3 years. Kuzma is who he is. I think at one point people was kind of comparing him to be like maybe a Jason Tatum. I don't see that in him. I think he's just a good, solid role player, but he's very streaky too. He has a tendency to shoot teams out of games. So I don't really have that much high expectations for Kuzma. I think he's going to be a piece that we're just going to flip for something else. I think the same thing with KCP. Now, Montrezl Harrell, I actually do like, because I like his hustle. I like the fact that he plays hard every night. Defensively, he's a solid player. He killed us this past season. So I do like him. I just got a feeling that we're going to try to flip him as well. For what, I'm not too sure. And Aaron Holiday, him coming from the Pacers, that's Drew Holiday's younger brother. He's still a project. Maybe Wes Unseld Jr. can develop him into being something. So I'm not going to really, jump down his throat too much. But the veteran players that's been in the league, the KCPs, the Kuzmas, those guys, we've seen them, at their previous stops, and we know what we're going to get from those guys. And I just don't think that they're going to really bring us a whole lot as much as what we could have gotten if they were like young rookies. I think that, Kisper probably has more potential than some of these veteran players who's been in the league for a long period of time.
Well, that's the thing. Like some people I've seen say that we're one of the deepest Wizards teams. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Go ahead, bro.
Okay. I've seen people say we're one of the deepest Wizards teams in recent memory. About that.
Are we deep? Yes, we do have a lot of depth. When you talk about the point guard position, we have to keep in mind, we got Spencer Dinwiddie, his backup, I believe, will be Howell Neto, who we re-signed. And we got Aaron Holiday, so I think he's going to probably be the third point guard. Then when you talk about the two, you got KCP who can play too. And when we talk about the small forward, I believe Denny is going to be the starting small forward, and then you got Kyle Kuzma that can come in. So we do have, and then you also have Kisper, which I believe he can play the 3, probably play the 4 as well. So depth-wise, this is probably the most deepest Wizards team I've ever seen. Now, will it mesh well? That remains to be seen.
So I agree. I think that this is a deep team. The deepest in Wizards history. There's a lot of promise in every player. Every player can put the ball in the hoop. Right. We've never seen ever, like in the past decade, at least from what I can say with complete confidence, ever had a problem scoring the basketball over the last decade.
I agree with that.
So to say that this is the deepest team, I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that we're kind of diminishing the past teams where we were, yes, there were certain teams that didn't have a good bench, or there was certain teams where the bench was playing better than the starters.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the point I'm making here is that it's still too premature to say that this is the deepest team when we have yet to see what the bench is going to be able to give us, or what even the starters is going to be able to give us.
Well, I agree with that. When I compare it to the Bill and John Wall era, I would say that this team is a little bit more deeper than some of those teams that we've had. It's just that. But the thing is, during that time period, the players then, they knew their role. They're going to have to learn their role under Wes Unseld Jr. But what scares me about this team is the fact that the players that we acquired with this Westbrook trade, the vast majority of those guys are on one-year contracts. So that could be problematic, with those guys going to be playing for potential contracts with us or with another team.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess my question is this the deepest team?
Is it the deepest team? It's the deepest team I've seen in probably a few years. I will say yes, it is.
All right. Okay. So what you think about the Corey Kispert draft pick and the Isaiah Todd draft pick?
The Corey Kispert draft pick, it's kind of like I mean, it's not really, it doesn't move me. But it's not a bad player to have. It does probably bring questions of what we're going to do with Davis Bertans, because he pretty much does the exact same that Davis Bertans does as far as being a 3-point shooter. Now Isaiah Todd, I hear that he has a lot of potential. I actually like his story. but I do think that he's probably at least about a good 3, maybe 4 years away from actually being something, because he's 19 years old. So I know since you brought him up, I remember you asking me a question offline about him, because the fact that he came from the G League, can you have a G League player go back to the G League even after you draft him? And I would say yes, because what I don't want to see him do, which we have seen with players in the past, is ride the bench and not get playing time. So if he's not ready, you got the Capital City Go-Go, use that farm system, send him down there and let him develop.
Yeah. I'm looking at it here, and I believe they're going to have Denny playing the 4, because we got a log jam. We got a log jam. So there is a great possibility that someone like Isaiah Todd doesn't see any playing time this year, because, we got Gafford. You're going to have, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have Montrezl Harrell kind of maybe in there in certain rotations where he's playing the 4 even.
Right.
Obviously, we know he's a banger. So it's going to be tough to get Todd any type of playing time in this rotation, I think.
Right.
I definitely think that it's probably the better upsided team right now. Unfortunately, he's going to be the only second round draft pick we're going to have on this team for years to come.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Because we traded all of our second round draft picks for the next 3-4 years away.
Right. I can't even tell you when would be the next time that we draft in the second round. I mean, because I believe we don't have one next year, and I don't think we have one in 2023 either. So you're right. It's probably going to be a good while before we draft in the second round.
All right. Well, let's move on over to let's talk about what we were we're going to talk about 5 minutes ago, and that's the management.
Man, let me just say this. I know you got to go to work tomorrow. We can talk about that for hours.
Well, what I was going to say is let's talk about that briefly, and then let's talk about expectations, and then we can wrap. I ain't got that much time on this battery that I'm working with right now.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so go ahead. What's your take on management?
So here's what I will say. Has Tommy Shepard done a pretty solid job as the acting general manager? Yes, he has. I'm not going to sit there and say he's done a bad job. I mean, he hasn't. he's kind of doing some of the same things we've seen from Ernie Grunfeld when it comes down to second round picks, where he's not picking the right players. Isaiah Todd hopefully will change that, but the trades that he's made, I can't complain about it. At one point in time, it was rumored that we weren't going to be able to move John Wall's contract. We did move his contract. We didn't do nothing but really flip it, to be honest with you, with another $40 million contract. But he was able to turn Westbrook into pieces. Now, of course, these pieces, as I said before, I believe they're going to possibly be flipped. Will it bring cap flexibility? I don't know. I know this team's trying to stay under the cap and make sure you don't hit the luxury tax. But if I had to grade Tommy Shepard as far as what he's done, I would give him a C.
See, that's tough. I mean, that's tough. There's gonna be a lot of people out there that don't agree with you on that. They you got the Tommy Shepard brigade, you got the Bradley Beal brigade, you got all of these apologists out here with the nation. But here's my take on it. I think that Tommy Shepard has done a terrific job as an interim. However, there's still some there's still a lot of things left to be desired in Tommy Shepard. Like, I almost feel like he makes the moves that are no-brainers. So, he hasn't really made a move that was too challenging yet.
I know. There was one in particular that we both wanted him to make that he didn't.
What's that?
He's still here.
Oh, Bradley Beal. Right. To Golden State. When Golden State offered 2 of their draft picks, a couple of their first rounders, and a couple of their current young players who were top 5 picks in the NBA draft.
Who's actually doing a pretty good job in the summer league right now.
So that's the challenge, right? Because if Tommy Shepard can prove that he can pull something like that off, and then in turn, we see the team improve based off of that type of decision, then Tommy Shepard's grade goes from a C or C plus immediately up to a B plus or an A.
Absolutely.
So I get why you say he's at a C, but some people out there think just because he's made moves that were kind of the obvious moves, just because he's made those moves in the short, that he deserves a higher grade.
Yeah, I mean, they're entitled to their opinion, but you know me, man, it's the voice of the unheard. So I'm not gonna sit there and make excuses until he makes the Westbrook trade, yes, it was a big move, but when you look at what we got in return, is that really something to get excited about? No, not necessarily. What would have been exciting is had you executed the Bradley Beal trade to Golden State, or had you entertained what Toronto was willing to offer, which was Siakam and the number 4 pick. Had you done something like that, that would change the dynamic of the team, then yes, his grade would go up higher. But until he does that, he still has to show me.
It's our takes. It's not the most popular takes. People are not going to agree with what we're saying because they're like, well, what proof do you have that, that would even work? But here's what I have to say. Every time Bradley Beal has a 40-point game, we lose games. Every time Bradley Beal scores 50, we lose games. There's proof right there that no matter how many points Bradley Beal scores, it doesn't make us a better team.
Exactly.
You have to have an argument on the opposite side of that. If Bradley Beal at his best can't win us ball games, then you have to make the decision to trade this guy for other pieces that could possibly win us ball games.
I 1,000% agree. I mean, a lot of people feel that, the organization should, they just need to continue to bring players to build around Bradley Beal, but you just proved why we shouldn't. Clearly he didn't have an issue with Westbrook asking for a trade because he didn't want to share the limelight. We barely made the playoffs, but if it wasn't for Westbrook and of course Daniel Gafford, let's give credit to Daniel Gafford because that's really the reason why we went on that went on that winning streak. We wouldn't have made the playoffs. We know without those type of players what this team looks like under Bill's leadership, and that's a lottery team.
Absolutely. So the last thing we're going to get into is the expectations of the season.
Okay.
What expectations of the season, my dude?
My expectations of the season is year 1 of Wes Unseld Jr. And as I said before, I'm expecting him to put his stamp on the team, to develop these guys. So I don't have expectations of us going to the playoffs. I look at it as a season that we should just, take baby steps, show some type of improvement, developing these guys. We should not be all in on trying to make the playoffs because let's be honest, if we could talk about this on another day too, if you look at the Eastern Conference and some of the moves that's already been made, I think it's going to be a little bit challenging to make the playoffs in the East. I think that when you talk about the 6th to the 8th seed, we're going to be right in that pack if we even make the playoffs. But in reality, I think we should just be developing these young guys and then see where it takes us.
So everything you said, I can't disagree with at all. I think the expectation of this season really centers around the acquisitions. People are going to obviously, like they do any other regime, they're going to point the finger at the coach for early failures.
Mm-hmm.
Start questioning whether or not Wes Unseld Jr. was the right hire. Listen, to me, if we have a bad season, it's not on Wes at all. My expectations for Wes Unseld Jr. this year is probably, it's probably as low as it could possibly be, because my bar for him is not any higher than my bar for any past Wizards head coach here when they first got here. Wes Unseld Jr., in my opinion, has a lot to work with.
Mm-hmm.
He has a brand new team, and he has a leader on this team who's been in his organization for 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of blame that could go around before it even gets to him if anything happens.
Agreed.
So if there's a slow start, if we start losing games, a lot of finger pointing would have to be directed towards the leader of the basketball team before anything else.
Well said.
Okay. Then you have to point to the acquisitions. Okay. Because we made the trade for these guys to be the players that we expect them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you go down the line from there. You could even point to management, because they're the one who went all out for the acquisitions. All right. So again, I guess my whole thing is the expectations of this season, they're not high. They're not high expectations. But
right.
If we do go on streaks and we have a great year, I will not be surprised either.
That's fair. I mean, I think we both will acknowledge if the team, plays well this upcoming season. But I think we're also going to pretty much be, we're realists. So we're looking at the roster. We have to see if these pieces that are on this roster can mesh well together. Because right now, I look at it, you have quite a few guys on here that are on 1-year contracts. They're in the last year of their contract. These guys could possibly be advertising themselves to other franchises. So you got to see if it's going to work well. So the main thing is I'm going to allow Wes Unseld to do his job this first season. I don't think the expectations is going to be as high as it was when we got Scott Brooks. It's a totally different situation when we got him. So with Wes Unseld, it'll be foolish for me to sit here and expect him to make this team be a top 4 team in the East, when, again, the Eastern Conference has gotten better. That's just unrealistic.
Right. So like you said, we're realists, and, we're going to speak the truth. We're going to speak facts. If people don't want to hear it, too bad. Like, it is, our expectations are, we want to see the team do great. We want to see us, we want to see this team take off, but they're not going to do it unless they prove that they can do it.
Right. That's exactly right.
So bottom line is I agree, man. I think that we're kind of like this for a reason, because we're giving the Wes Unseld Jr. and the team time to develop, and then let's see what we do next year, because everyone else in the East has done this over. They've surpassed us. So we have to prove that we belong in the conversation with those teams who surpassed us.
Exactly. I'll finish it off with this. Last season when we traded John Wall, people were automatically saying that, hey, we're going to be a top 4 seed team in the East. You saw how the way it started. We started playing like trash. And let's be for real, Westbrook was playing like straight dog shit the first 2 months. It wasn't until we played against Houston in Houston and he got to John Wall when he finally started playing better. Now, I don't know if it was the quad injury. I don't know what it was, but he started playing better during that time period. But then, of course, when we go to the first round of the playoffs against Philadelphia, Westbrook plays like shit as he always does. So now that we make this trade, and it's clearly a downgrade when you talk about the point guard position, people are going back saying, hey, I believe this is a playoff team. Let's let the team prove to us that they can be a playoff team before we jump the gun. Like I said, I'm going to allow Wes Unseld Jr. to coach this team into what you stated. Whatever happens, it happens. If the team starts losing, there is a lot of blame that can go around, but we cannot just automatically go straight to the head coach and blame him. You got to look at the players on the team. What is the leader doing? Is he doing what he's supposed to do to get these players, his teammates, in the right position? If that answer is no, you got to hold them accountable. To this season is all about accountability for me.
Absolutely. Well, look, my dude, this was a great episode. This was a, you and I, this is something we've been wanting to do forever.
Absolutely.
And we finally completed our first ever podcast where we cross-platform joined into one, which is now SOW State of the Wizards. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. My dude, we did it. We got to keep this thing going. And we'll talk Summer League. We didn't get a chance to talk about it this go around, but our second episode of State of the Wizards, we will talk about that on episode 2.
All right, definitely. One last thing, we know some guys that think we, jump ship the moment John Wall had got traded. So just want you guys to look real close. What does that say right there? Look real close for you guys. Just letting y'all see that. Remember that. Real close. We know you guys are now Laker fans. Now, we know y'all Laker fans because y'all favorite players play for the Lakers now.
Oh, man. So that'll do it. That'll wrap up this episode of State of the Wizards. Thank you guys for tuning in again. And signing off, this is DCan with Wiz Takes and my man,
K Jose. Y'all have a good one.
All right, man. Check y'all on the next.